Today I would like to show you how to make these Arabic sandpaper letters, which we use in Montessori classrooms to introduce children to the symbols for the letter sounds. So usually it's quite easy to find these sandpaper letters in English online, but it can be quite tricky to find the Arabic ones, and if you do find them, sometimes the script is not suitable. So I usually make my own ones myself. So this is how we make them. In order to make them, you're going to need some kind of heavy cardstock or plywood. For this, I'm using 3mm plywood, which has been sprayed red, and I have cut my boards into a size of 19 by 14 centimeters, and that will fit perfectly with the PDF that I'm going to upload for the outline of the letters that you can trace. You're also going to need some fine grade sandpaper. This is number 1, size 1, and you can buy this in any hardware store. You want to make sure that it's rough, but at the same time it's not going to hurt the child's fingers when they feel the letter. You're going to need the templates for the letters. So this file with these templates, I'm going to upload this, and this is a really good size for sandpaper letters, as it allows the child that muscular movement that includes not just their fingers but their whole arm. So this is a really good size, so you can download that and use that. You're also going to need some scissors, a pencil, a cutting blade. I usually use this glue, but you can use any super glue that sticks well, but I find that this one lasts the longest in the classroom. And what we're going to do is we're going to trace these letters onto the sandpaper and cut them out so we have letters like this, and then they will then be stuck onto the wooden boards that we have. So let's try and make one here together. So the easiest way that I found to transfer these letter templates onto the sandpaper is to trace them using a pencil. You want to trace over the printed outline as carefully as possible. Try to be as accurate as possible because we're going to have to retrace this, and it's easy to lose the perfect shape if you don't do a very good first trace. Okay, so I've made a few mistakes, but they won't really impact because we're going to trace this onto the back of the sandpaper. So you now have to place the sandpaper face down, and you want to also place your printed template face down on the sandpaper, and then you want to trace on the back to transfer that template onto the sandpaper. You want to press quite hard to make sure that you've transferred the pencil mark, but also to leave an indentation on the sandpaper, which will help you when you come to cut. Again, try to be as accurate as possible because the sandpapers will leave an impression on the child, and if we can get them done perfectly, then the child will absorb that perfectness and exactness of each letter. Okay, once you've traced it, you should be able to see it on the sandpaper. You can then either use a pair of scissors or a cutting knife. This letter is quite simple, so I'm just going to use a pair of scissors, but for some letters you may need to use the cutting knife to take out the holes, for example in the middle of the letter, or for some angles that are quite hard to cut around. Do try to cut really slowly and try to make sure you follow the contour of each shape. So I'm just going to start by taking the letter out of the sandpaper so that I can move more freely. And I find that it's best to cut in one long stroke and slowly rotate the sandpaper as you're cutting, as that seems to give a much smoother finishing to the shape. This letter is fairly easy, so you might want to start with the really simple letters first and then attempt one of the more complicated shapes. Okay, so now that's cut out. I'm just going to check and see if there's any uneven parts, and I'm just going to use my knife to smooth any of the sections which don't look very good. So now that I've done that, I can paste it onto one of my wooden boards. I cut out the dot earlier, so I don't have to cut it out for this video. So in order to do this, we want to make sure the letter sticks really well. So we have to apply quite a lot of glue, and then we want to spread it out all over the shape to make sure that all of it is adhered to the wood. Especially if you're using this in a classroom where there'll be many children using it, you really want to make sure that you've pasted it on well. I have a pair of sandpaper letters that I made approximately 11 years ago, and most of the letters are still stuck on using this glue, so that's why I prefer to use this one. Okay, so once you've spread the glue out quite well, you made sure it's in all the corners, you can just put it on the letter. So I'm going to place it like this. Make sure you angle it correctly and that you're happy with it, and then just press it down so that and then we'll do the dot. And then you have a sandpaper letter. You just need to leave this to dry for a few hours before you give them to the children. So once you make all of the letters, you can then place them all together in a box or on a tray, and then you can use the 3-period lesson to introduce these letter sounds to the child.